caltrop is an area denial weapon designed to stop the enemy. The caltrop is a sturdy, simple, yet effective weapon no matter its position. Its purpose was originally designed to stop elephant and donkey attacks. It graduated to stopping tanks. And now, the caltrop is your defense against propaganda, polished lies, and manufactured outrage. It's free from counterfeit credibility and synthetic truth. However, inside the walls of the caltrop, you're going to be forced to think. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Mike Calderese is the caltrop.
Coming down the mountain from the heaven to the hell, the Mike Calderese, the caltrop, he never stops, so ring the bell. He bring the facts, he's been up every morning till we sleep. He get it deep, Mike Calderese, in your head and in your sheets. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the caltrop. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the caltrop. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the caltrop.
Good evening and welcome to the Caltrop. I'm obviously your host, Michael Calderese, and you know what the Caltrop stands for. We are your defense mechanism from all of the bullshit and all the lies that are out there. And there's a lot of there's lies that come at us from every single direction. And today I have a guest on that we had on our previous show, the previous show that I was on, and he was a great guest then. As I wanted to have him on because Health Week is going to continue with us, right? We had obviously a very lively debate. If you saw the first the Monday show, that wasn't really what I planned to do. What I planned to do is play a little bit of the health versus the healthcare debate that we had, and obviously it turned into all of that and a little bit more. But I had obviously Tim Waltz retarded. There was a lot of things that were on the docket, but I definitely want to get into the health versus healthy, because I think there's a big difference in this country when you have health care versus living healthy. I don't think we'll need as much health care if we decided to start living healthier. And in that regard, we're going to have Josh Baker on. He's going to be talking to us. He's from Diamond D Ranch. The last time we spoke to him, there was things that still hung out in my brain, in my upper cortex, in my lower cortex, the frontal lobe, that just stuck with me about where your meat is and things he said about ground beef. So we're going to go through a lot of different stuff with him. If you haven't heard him yet, stay tuned for that part. But it's also going to be I have the mics right, obviously, that's going to be getting to in a second. We're going to talk about eating healthy versus locally or getting food from your big box stores. A lot of the time, there's a big difference, and you're going to hear the difference coming up. But we have everything I didn't get to on Monday that is coming up right after Josh Baker. But let's waste no time and get the show started. The mic's right. Shut the fuck up and listen. All right, buckle up, because I said Health Week is continuing. Because tonight we're diving into the delicious, greasy, possibly radioactive world of American food. And no, I'm not talking about your mom's meatloaf that looks like it needed an exorcism. But I am talking about big food companies, the mass production factories where your lunch was born on an assembly line next to 40,000 identical chicken nuggets, each one shaped like a geometry lesson, and all with multiple traces of DNA. See, eating these giant corporate food factories is like dating somebody who calls you buddy. It works. It's fine. You're not dying from eating it. But deep down, you know you deserve better. Mass-produced food, to me, is built for one thing and one thing only, and it's quantity. It's not taste, it's not nutrition, it's not flavor, and it's definitely not your lifespan. It's just quantity. Their business model is simple. How many calories can we shove into a box and convince America that it's a meal? Half of the stuff on the shelves have more preservatives in it than King Tut. They're basically selling out edible museum pieces. But then, on the other hand, you have the local family suppliers, the small farms, the butcher who actually knows where his what cow you're eating. The vegetable stand down the street run by a guy named Frank, who somehow grows tomatoes the size of toddlers. These people, they're feeding the quarterly, they're feeding the people, not their quarterly earnings report. They're feeding this town. You buy from a local supplier, you're not just getting food, you're getting flavor, you're getting freshness, you're getting a product that hasn't been on a cross-country semi-truck journey like it's backpacking through Europe. Your ground beef shouldn't have frequent flyer miles, and your steak shouldn't need a passport. Local food actually tastes like something. A carrot from a small farm, that thing snaps. A mass-produced carrot, it's kind of like orange sadness. You bite into it, and it tastes like a student loan debt. And let's talk about the benefits for a second. With small suppliers, your money stays in the community. You're supporting families, not billion-dollar corporations, with more lobbyists than chickens. You're helping real people keep land, pay bills, pass down traditions, and not help big food build their next experimental chicken nugget. Plus, you know what's in your food. You hear a local farmer talk about his produce, and he sounds like a proud parent. You ask a big food what's in their product, and they start reading ingredients like they're trying to summon a demon. Sodium, hexa, whatever, all the difference. You can't even pronounce it. That rule applies to both food and dating. And at the end of the day, it's simple. Mass production feeds millions, but local production nourishes humans. One is about survival. The other one is about living. So support your local farms, your local bakeries, your local butchers. Support people who actually give a damn, because food shouldn't come from, or food should come from families, not factories. And if your chicken nuggets need a chemical engineering degree to understand, maybe it's not food. Maybe support your local, and really you're going to be supporting yourself. Because when you eat healthy and you get healthy and you start eating healthy and you start knowing what's in your food, because everyone checks that label, but when you really know what's in your food, that's when you really start living healthy. And the question that I have is, how many of us do really know what is in our food? And to kind of start this off, let me end it like this. That was the Mike's Right. Shut the fuck up and listen. And hopefully, after this break, we're going to get the answer. All right, I mostly had to play that just so I could grab my phone off its teleprompter mode. But let's get to my guest. Everyone, this is the man, Josh Baker. He is from Diamond B Ranch. The last time we spoke to you, you were on, what was it, 8 acres out there, bro?
Yeah, we started small, and we have some big news now. We're going to be moving up to Rome, Georgia, and expanding the operation so that we can help feed more people in America.
So listen, that's where I remember the last time we spoke to you, you were in the process of making that happen. And I love, hearing the I guess the evolution of what you have going on. But let's take everybody back, bro. For everybody that doesn't know who you are, a little bit, so you have similar audience, but a little bit different audience. Tell everybody who is Josh Baker, bro. Like take us back a little bit. How did you get into into cattle farming, so to speak?
So I'm a first-generation rancher, truly a first-generation rancher. We've started from the ground up. My wife and I, Sarah, we're both professional firefighters. I still currently am a professional firefighter until I pull the trigger. We officially make the move, then I will retire 100% from the fire department. But we were both professional firemen, and COVID came along, and we know that entire bunch of bullshit that went along with that. There was a lot of political pressures put on us to take jabs.
Can you describe the bullshit, please? What kind of bullshit are we talking about exactly?
We could probably do a brief bullshit. Everything that happened was bullshit.
No, I know.
And,
I was just kidding.
But so there was some political pressure put on first responders to take the jab and do all this crap, and we were over it. And with 2 little girls at home, we decided, you know what? I need to prevent my kids from being exposed to as much of the bullshit in this world as possible and keep them healthy. So how do I do that? I start growing my own food, and I know exactly what's going into their mouths and what they're eating, and I can help give them a longer lifespan and a healthier, more productive life just by making that choice. So it simply started with egg layers. We started raising a bunch of chickens here. We had a ton of eggs. They started selling all over the local community, and people were like, "We love this. How do we get everything?" They wanted beef, they wanted pork, they wanted chicken, they wanted me to grow vegetables, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a second. We can't scale like that, but here's what we can do." So we started then into meat birds. We did chickens, we did hogs, and we started providing pork, and then we got into beef. And I worked with cattle in college at Penn State. I lived at the Beef and Sheep Center, and that's how I paid my tuition and paid my housing.
You lived with cows, right? That's what I
I
heard,
lived.
that you were
I
in
was
Penn
one of
State.
the.
You were living with the animals, sleeping on hay bales and shit.
I was one of the infamous barn boys, and it was a great pickup line to go to a bar and say, "Hey, you guys want to come back to the barn and see the baby sheep?" That's how you get them all back. But those were the
Well
college
played,
days.
sir.
Those
And
were
then
the
you really
college
lay
days.
her down on a hay bale, and she goes,
That's
"Oh,
right.
okay, this
It's
is
just
really the farm experience."
romance
Huh?
101, baby. It's how it started. But so I had, had experience with cattle, but I didn't have any of my own. I didn't grow up on a cattle ranch. I grew up working on a dairy farm, the same one that my father worked on when he was, a teenager. I went to that exact same one every year when I was a young, probably from 10 to 15 years old, worked there every summer, stayed at my grandparents', worked on the same dairy farm, and learned what really hard work was and the value of a dollar. So we decided, hey, let's get into cattle. So we started, and it was just simply buying another gentleman's calves and then raising them, making sure that they weren't vaccinated, didn't have antibiotics and hormones in them, make sure that what we were feeding and that they were on grass and they were living as natural as possible in the way God intended. That's what we always say. We have no bullshit beef, and we raise our cattle the way God intended, on pasture and in open air. So we started that, and it just took off, and it has been a absolute wildfire. I think a lot of it had to do with my loud mouth and very opinionated political beliefs, and the fact that I am truly 100% America first. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat anymore. I am America first and only, and that is it. And people hate that. Some people can't stand it. But I truly believe that as an American, this country needs taken care of first and foremost, and our people need taken care of first and foremost. And not a dollar should leave this country until the streets look like the streets of Dubai, the crime is gone, our veterans are taken care of, and our first responders have the money that they need to not only operate, but to have a decent living and not have to work 16 other side jobs while they're serving their community. Same with teachers, same with all that kind of stuff. But so that's kind of where the roots started, and it has taken off, and we couldn't even keep up with demand. I think a lot of it had to do with our one-on-one customer service. Every box that leaves our farm and gets shipped all over the country, I sign personally. I write a note in there personally. We get to know every one of our customers. I know when they have their ups and downs. I know when they add to their family. I know when they get a promotion at work, and we make sure we make note of that. Try going to Publix or your local Sprouts or wherever the hell else you want to buy commercial beef. Let me know if the butcher knows everything about your life and that he knows what's going on, or takes the time to write a handwritten note in every order that you place an order with. Because to me, it was important to people to know, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money with me, we're going to make sure you feel like a part of our family.
Dude, you said
So
enough in that one opening right there to where I have like 97 different questions, honestly, for you. First off, I definitely check it through your Instagram. I definitely caught a liberal Facebook moderator somewhere in there, so I kind of got an idea of, all right, this guy, he's definitely not afraid to voice his opinion. I definitely like that, and I think everyone's like you, man. I think we got to the point where we are America first, and I'm sick and tired, like you. I'm sick and tired of our money going everywhere else, and it's one of the reasons where I'm a mason contractor, where I don't hire illegal help. I want my money staying in America. I don't want it going, overseas or any of that stuff. I think it starts with little things like that. Now, let's talk about a couple different things, bro. Because like when you got into doing this, and obviously, you mentioned a lot of things like COVID, and then you didn't want the cows to get vaccinated and stuff like that. Are there mRNA injections for cows? Like, tell me a little bit about the hormone stuff. And I want to play this kid for you. I saw this, and I know this is it's not groundbreaking. I found it on your page, but he said this, and I just love your take on it. I don't know if anybody knows that they actually have synthetic hormones that are going into some of your meat?
Usage in cattle. Let's talk about it, give you guys all the ins and outs. So on the market today, they have an implant that's going to go right behind the cattle's ear that's going to secrete a synthetic form of estrogen. Now, what we have to keep in mind is this is going to shut down the natural estrogen production of the animal themselves and allow for this synthetic version to overtake it and produce more estrogen. Now, if you were to eat a beef that had not been raised on any of these implants, it's going to secrete about 0.85 deciliters of estrogen. Now, the ones that are being raised on the implants themselves are going to be secreting around 1.3 to 1.5. So not necessarily higher, not an unsafe thing, but it is a synthetic form of estrogen. Is that better? Is that worse? Is it healthy? Is it not? You guys let me know in the comments.
All right. So now, what's the difference between something like that and if you can take us through that a little bit? But what they do to some of these cows? Why don't we start there? Some of the big, I guess, the meat in the big box stores, the meat that's coming over from overseas. Like a lot of people, I know you said last time that people don't realize that a lot of our meat gets put, shipped in from overseas and it all gets ground up together. Why don't you take us, if you can, step by step through what you were experiencing as far as the opposite of what you do?
So obviously, to start with, you have the big four. That's the big four meat packers in the United States. Now, a lot of those companies are obviously foreign entities. They're foreign owned. They have some very shady ties. But that's what controls pretty much all of your proteins in America. And of course, with any model like that, a lot of these started as very small, there's a book out there that describes the Tyson, the rise of power to Tyson and how all that kind of started. And they wanted to vertically integrate. So they owned every aspect of production, from raising the chicks to selling the chicks to the farmer using all their feeds, to them then buying them back off the farmer, processing them, and then they sell them. And now they have, all the brands that are under Tyson. But basically what that model is we have to produce as much as possible and try to make it as cheap as possible. So what happens with anything when you try to produce as much as possible and make it as cheap as possible? You cut as many corners as you can and you try to speed up the timeline, so-called play God, and make things grow faster than what they should. That's what's happening. You're cramming a bunch of cattle into a very concentrated feedlot style operation where you have hundreds of cattle in pens. They're fed very high calorie, grain rations that are all meant, those rations are specifically formulated to produce the most amount of gain per day on the least amount of feed as possible. So you're trying to just, if you want to put it like in bodybuilding terms or human terms, you're trying to just slam as much muscle and bulk on a bodybuilder as you can with the least amount of inputs or as fast as you can. So what do? You run heavy gear, you do all this other stuff, and you can create this monster. Well, same thing. They're not trying to cram muscle per se, but they're just getting weight. They want, obviously, there's muscle in that. Muscle tissue is obviously what you're getting in a steak, but they want fat. They want cover fat. They need all of these things, but they want to take that calf from date of birth to finish hanging in a slaughterhouse in the shortest amount of time possible. Some of them are doing it in as little as 16 months.
Wow.
Now, for us, that's not what we do. The cow's ready. That steer's ready when that steer's ready. And that steer will tell us when he's ready, when he shows signs of being ready. When the brisket starts filling out, when there's some fat by the tail head, we can start to see the uniformity of fat being built on the outside, the cover fat. That's when we know, hey, this animal is progressing to the point where it's ready for slaughter. It is now matured and it's ready. For us, sometimes that may take almost 2 years, 24 months. Well, that kind of screws that whole concept of quick, fast, easy, cheap. So it takes more time, takes more inputs. It takes actually caring for those animals. And in our situation, we don't have hundreds crammed at a feedlot. They're all out in pasture eating grass all day long. And then when they get closer to finish, they're offered a free choice grain ration, which means we put it in a bunk. If they want to come eat it, they come eat it. And then they go right back out to pasture. If they have found a a great area of grazing where they like that grass more than what they're getting out of that bunk, they'll stay there and eat grass. So every animal kind of progresses at a little bit of a different pace, and that's all based on breed, genetics, all of that kind of stuff, just like human beings. Some people are tall, some people are short, the same thing. Some people have huge growth spurts, some people were, tiny all their lives with short statured and they don't grow. It's the same with cattle. So what you're getting in that big box store is you are getting a system that has tried to have been refined to the absolute peak of efficiency, because for some reason we felt we needed cheap, fast, and easy. To me, it doesn't really work on everything. If you want quality, you're not going to get cheap, fast, easy. I always tell people you normally only get one of those three. You got to figure out which one of those three do you want. You want it fast? Probably not going to be cheap, and it's not going to be easy. You want it easy, it might not be fast. It's that combination doesn't work. And so what we did is we wanted to take all that out of it. I wanted full transparency and traceability. That's what I want. So that gets us out of the big commercial game to begin with. And the commercial guys, the big four, controls that entire industry. So they control the cattlemen, whether cattlemen want to admit it or not. They can fluctuate prices. They can make prices go up. They can make prices drop. They can tank the market if they want to. They can flood it with imported beef and make the price of American beef drop. They can tamper with everything. And as a cattleman, you're just a victim of what happens. Now, right now, the cattle markets are really high. So these guys are singing, high praises. Everything's great. But when that cattle market tanks and they're all crying poor mouth because they can't afford to keep those cattle around to even sell them. And when they're selling them, they're not getting much money at all. What you're paying for that steak in a store, that rancher's seeing probably less than, a dollar of that. Or if you look at a price per pound, they're probably at, pennies on the dollar on that price per pound. Everyone else is getting the big cuts. That rancher's getting the least of that bit. So that's where hormones come in, antibiotics come in. When you pen a lot of animals together like this, you have problems with sickness. There's a lot of fecal matter that obviously they're going to the bathroom with, they're eating that much, and you don't have a place to put it. It's just they're standing on it. They're piling up. Whereas in a natural setting in pasture, they're walking around. They defecate here. They'll defecate over there. It's all spread out. We drag those pastures to break all that up. And then, of course, the soil takes over, and so does nature, the birds, the dung beetles, the things of that nature. You're not going to find that in a feedlot operation. You're not going to find the grass and the microorganisms and everything to start breaking that down. It's just going to pile up. They get rid of that pen. They come in, they clean that pen out. They haul that manure, that waste out, and it probably gets spread on fields for crops, etc.
So so again, man, like you get me to have like 9,000 questions when you start talking stuff. So let's try to stick with like the big box operations. Like when I get ground beef in the store, you said something earlier where the farmers are a victim of what happens. So you have these big suppliers. They could flood it with the overseas beef. One of the things that you heard of, and I don't know if you follow it, but I'd love it if you could give a little bit of insight on it. With the Trump tariffs, right? Trump had tariffs coming on from the South American companies for beef was one of the things they had tariffed. I guess with the price being as high as it's been, he wants to lower those tariffs so we can import more beef so it could be cheaper. But what's in that cheap beef, right? So these cows come in, like what happens to them typically? So if you could talk about that aspect of it.
That's the other big thing. So when you're bringing in beef, we don't really have a background or history of what that country's doing or what those cattlemen do to raise their beef. They use hormones. Do they use antibiotics that maybe we don't use, maybe ones that aren't tested or approved? Who knows what goes into that animal? Then you get that animal, and a lot of things can happen. They can either be slaughtered down there and brought over in refrigerated, containers as just hanging sides of beef and then put into our production model, or they could be live trucked. But most of the time, live trucking an animal that far is not good for that animal. So a lot of what we import is already been processed. So then think of the processing. what kind of rules and regulations are down in Mexico, Argentina, wherever we want to get this beef from compared to here. They may be better, they may be worse. I'm not, I don't participate in it, so I couldn't tell you firsthand. But then that beef comes over and we take it, and a lot of the beef raised outside of this country is very lean. It is not fat at all. That's why this country, we raise super fat steers as commercial animals. We try to pack as much fat as possible on there. When they get slaughtered, they take all that trim fat, they mix it in with that lean stuff, and they make your hamburger. So now your hamburger in a big processing facility that's putting out, maybe they're killing 5,000 head a day, and that would be typical. Some kill more, some kill a little less, but 5,000 head of animals go through there that day. All that trim and everything that's coming off as that animal's going through that assembly line gets thrown into this giant grinder meat mixer thing, and that's what's making your hamburger. They're not packaging small packs of 1 pound burger. Each cow gets fully broken down, or each steer gets fully broken down, and all of that's packed into one, so and that's not the way it works at all. It just goes through this assembly line. Every person has their job. They make their cut or their 2 cuts, and it moves to the next guy, and it just keeps going. So when we spoke before, that's what we were talking about for hamburger and things. On
Where you can
our
say
side,
1,000 different DNAs are in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's been different tests and different studies that they could have upwards of 1,000 or more sets of DNA in 1 pound of hamburger. Now, we don't subscribe to that, so we take our cattle to a local USDA processor in Forsyth, Georgia, run by a gentleman who started as a day worker and has worked his way up to have his own herd, his own brand of beef that he sells there locally at farmers market. And now he has a slaughter facility, a USDA certified slaughter facility, and he hires a bunch of local American workers who have families in the local area. And that's why we choose to take it up there. From here in Florida, it's 4.5 hours one way, but we make that commitment because it fits with my morals and ethics. And I would be a real hypocrite if I said America first and all this stuff, and then I drug it down the road to a commercial processor who hired a bunch of illegals or has a bunch of immigrant workers in there, and none of that money is staying. Now, some of these big processors are in little communities, and everybody from that community works there. That is true. But for the most part, nowadays, a lot of that is immigrant or illegal labor. Unfortunately, we have lost a very large group of butchers in this country due to the disappearance of your local processor. Probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was probably local processors almost in every community. And there was probably local butcher shops in every town square. All that disappeared. Well, when that disappeared, we lost all these people that had the skill set to break down cattle. Butchering an animal isn't just this willy-nilly. It's not like cleaning a deer. To be a true butcher and somebody who has practiced the art form, it is an art form. When you get steaks that are packaged by somebody who's not that good, you can tell. There's cut marks in it. There's bone dust left on it. There's various different signs that you can tell that somebody is not a quality butcher. And these guys working in these big slaughterhouses, that's why they're only doing 1 cut. It's just, I make this 1 cut. That's my job. 1 cut, 1 cut. Every one that goes by, I make that 1 cut. Because that's how you kind of control that. You don't have to have a lot of skill to make 1 cut. You just get good at that 1 cut. So that's the difference there. And when people buy from a big box store, and a lot of these places, I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of these home delivery steak services, if you don't have full transparency and traceability, you can tell exactly where it's coming from, there is a high probability that is commercial beef just remarketed under a nice sweet name and a fancy website.
So let's give everybody a look at exactly what you're talking about.
So a lot of people ask why there is a difference between direct-to-consumer versus commercial beef. One of those glaring facts is this right here. So when we get our beef back, we get it back in boxes. They're all boxed. Every one of our animals is broken down, packaged, and that box is labeled. Let me show you here what we mean. So this box says 880. That's the hang weight of that steer. That 880 corresponds to an ear tag number, and that ear tag number corresponds to the steer that I dropped off, so that we know all the genetics of that steer, how it was bred, who its father, who its mother is. And then what we get to do is we can tell.
Look at that.
the type of marbling, the finish, how that steer performed, and then we write all of these weights down individually in a notepad per cut, what the weights are, and we can total up the total amount of weight that came back from that animal, and we can see how it performed overall. So that.
Now, what do you mean by that, dude? So, like, I love that visual. First off, they look amazing. I cannot wait to get my hands on some of these steaks. What do you mean by you could tell how they did overall? Like, what am I looking at when you look at that? Are you looking at the marbling? Like, do you take one out and like, are you trying like one steak from each box? And like, yeah, man, this is really good. Like, tell me about like, what do you mean by perform well?
So I do actually. That's a rule that we started when we first started doing this. Every time we get steers done, I take one steak or one cut out of each one of those steers, and we eat it before we ever ship anything out. I make sure that those steers are the taste, the flavor, the quality that we want before anything ever leaves here. If it for some reason it wasn't, I guess we're not shipping. We're going to figure something else out. It's either we're going to have to eat all that, or feed it to the dogs or make dog grind with it. But we've never had that problem. But I've always maintained that level of standards. Now, when I say we write all this down and we monitor it, so normally just kind of rough math. Now, this isn't going to be exact, but you take a live weight animal, and 60% of that is going to be what your hang weight is. And then when you take the hang weight, an average animal will perform around 60%. So 60% of that hang weight will then get you what your final retail product is. And that 40% loss is, trim fat, is bones, the weight that you're going to discard, things that you'll discard during that butchering process or breakdown process. The
So
live
that
weight.
880, that 880 was the hang weight you were saying, right?
Yeah, so 880 was the hang weight. So you take
What'd you get?
60%
600
of that.
pounds, 550 pounds of
Yeah,
meat?
you're going to be looking right around there. Now,
Okay.
for us, it could be heavier. Say you do all bone-in cuts. Well, you have the bone in there, so each individual thing's going to weigh a little bit more, so you're going to get a little bit better of a percentage. But what we're really looking for is we want to tie, is the marbling, is the tenderness, how does the steak look, how does the meat look? That's what we're looking at so that we tie it back to our genetics and how we're breeding our animals. Are our animals filling out? Are they performing well? Are they getting marbled? Do they have tenderness? Do they have flavor? Are they juicy? There's three big components of three big eating qualities that you want to look for. Obviously, is tenderness, juiciness, and flavor. Now, a lot of people just think, well, man, that steak was super marbled. It's got to be tender, right? The more fat, the better the steak, the more tender it is. That's actually the furthest thing from the truth. The fat and the intermuscular marbling that you see there, all those white flecks in there, which is what we call IM fat or intermuscular marbling, that actually just has to do with the flavor and the juiciness of that steak. You could have incredible marbling and still have a steak that's tough as hell. The toughness or the tenderness, either or, comes actually from a natural enzyme that is found in cattle. So you have calpains and calpistatins. Calpains are the naturally occurring enzyme that when that animal is slaughtered, it's found in the muscle tissue, and it actually helps break down the muscle fibers after slaughter. That process is called proteolysis. Now, when they do that, that's why we hang our beef for 14 days. Another big difference between commercial beef and direct to consumer, a lot of us hang our beef for a lot longer. Your average commercial beef is probably slaughtered, say, on a Monday. By Wednesday, Thursday, it's already in a package, and by Friday, it's already on a truck, probably headed somewhere. And they call that wet aging. So you take that large
Wet
cut,
aging.
most likely a primal. They stick it in a bag with natural juices, is what they tell you. I don't know what's in there, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you take a primal out, well, you've seen them at Sam's Club or any of those big box.
Is
you
it
hold
typical?
that giant.
Real quick, I'm sorry to harp on this, but it's what comes out of a cow. Is it typically considered juice?
Well, I mean, when you're breaking these things down, you're gonna have obviously some myostatin, some blood, some stuff like
I
that.
know, I just never heard.
But a lot of
juice.
it, they do inject some of these with salt water to plump them up or to give them a little bit more stuff to wet age in. I don't know the science behind it. I can just tell you, if you pick up a package that's full of juice like that, not for me. You don't see any juice in any of those steak packages that I was showing you.
There's no extra juice. No, it doesn't come with the juice
for 14 days. So I lose a lot of weight off that animal right away. All that water, all that other stuff is actually gone. It's disappearing. It's dry aging itself. So it's in a room held at a certain temperature with a certain amount of airflow, and it actually creates a layer on the outside that then gets taken off. It's pellicula. It's actually like almost a little bit of the beef is, I mean, it's a bacteria that gets on there, but it's not harmful. But remember when we used to dry age things way back in the day, or you'd hear about pioneers salt aging things where they packed it in salt, they hung it up, and it kind of actually like gets this coating on it, and it's a bacterial coating. It's, you know, kind of molding, I guess you could say, but it's not the mold that we're thinking of in commercial breads or things like that. But it forms this kind of a plate, and what it's doing is it's sealing everything in there, and it's helping that beef start to tenderize itself. All the muscle fibers are relaxing, all the tissues are starting to relax. You're getting a very strong beef flavor, that good. People always tell me, well, your steak really tastes like beef. And I thought, well, shouldn't it all, if it's all beef, shouldn't it all taste like beef? But if you get stuff from the big box store, probably don't have a lot of taste. So what do? We throw a bunch of seasonings and sauces and everything else to dress it up. Most of our hamburger, our customers eat with not a single thing but salt. So that's that dry aging process there. And what we're doing is we're allowing those cow pains to actually go to work. They're doing the job that they're supposed to do. And there's certain breeds of cattle that have higher levels of cow pains. That's why we raise Black Angus cattle, because they have some of the highest levels of that naturally occurring enzyme.
So now you're saying cow pains, right?
Yeah, those are cow pains. The calpastatin is basically like the brake pedal. So the cow pain is the gas pedal. That's what breaks it down, makes it tender. The calpastatin does the absolute opposite. It's an inhibitor of that breakdown. So it actually prevents that cow pain from doing the work. It's a brake pedal. And there's breeds like Brahma influenced cattle that are down here a lot in the South because they're more heat tolerant. They actually have higher levels of calpastatins. They're naturally tougher beef. So
so higher calpastatins, that means it's a tougher beef because it doesn't allow it to break down as much. And the more cow pains that you have, it doesn't mean that, you know, I thought a cow pain was that you were going to become a McDonald's cheeseburger. I thought that was a pain for a cow. But cow pains are what breaks down the meat. That's what makes it tender. So we want more cow pains and less copaesthetics.
Yeah, less calpastatins and more cow pains. And what that does, so when we start breeding cattle and we're looking for cattle to breed and the genetics that they have, there are genetic markers for this. And some guys may not pay attention to this, but there's EPDs that a lot of us follow that are expected progeny. And it tells you what you can expect from these lines. You can expect birth weights, you can expect calving weights, and they try to get all this information from, okay, well, we bred this bull to this cow, it had this calf, we weigh the calf at birth, so now we have a birth weight. How much do the calves weigh on average? What's the breed standard? And then where do we go from there? So EPDs is like a whole nother thing that a lot of cattlemen can get very into. But one of those EPDs is the tenderness index and a shear force score. And you want to look for the genetic markers called CAPN1. That's what a genetic marker for a cow pain is the CAPN1. And calpastatins are CAST or CAST. If you have high CAST genetic markers, you have a naturally tougher animal when it is slaughtered. If you have high CAPN1 markers, you have an animal that's going to be naturally more tender when slaughtered and allowed to hang and actually dry age or age before you package it and before you eat it.
Yankee 68 has a question real quick on this on McDonald's.
Yep.
He says McDonald's sells 6 million burgers a day. Where are all these cows?
All over the world. And that's what we're doing. That's that mass. That's that mass. Bring it in, you know. And I'm not going to lie to you. Have I had a McDonald's hamburger? Absolutely. Anyone that tells you no, I've never had one.
I just had a Wendy's cheeseburger today,
Yeah.
bro. I'm a mason contractor. I have to eat some of this stuff.
There is a
Trust me,
time
I
and a
wish I
place.
had one of your burgers wherever I go. I don't have that option.
You know, I get it. There's a time and a place where we grab fast food. And is there going to be a market for that? There always will be. There's always going to be a commercial beef market. But when you start getting into myself, what kind of food can I control at home? What do I want to eat? That's the difference. You know what I mean? We're all going to.
Sorry, Calorie says eat more chicken.
Yeah. Chicken's about 1,000 times worse. Best of luck.
So Six Design says, I'm just reading a couple things for you before I don't mean to cut you off with this. I want to get some of these guys on. Six Design says beef from outside the U.S. don't necessarily have the same regulations as USDA. Now does that get? So let's ask that. So is that true? Right, that is true, right? And then if they come in, do they get mixed in with USDA beef and labeled USDA?
Well, when they come in, they're going through a USDA slaughterhouse, so they follow the protocol there.
Okay.
But if that animal has already been slaughtered, which means that it was obviously killed, gutted, spun out, etc., and that's just a hanging side of beef, we don't know what happened in that slaughter facility for the first part of that. Once it comes into the United States, it's under the control of the USDA. But we have USDA regulated slaughterhouses, but let's think about this. If you're cutting 5,000 or more animals a day, are you telling me that if something gets cut that shouldn't have been cut, maybe there's, you hit an intestine somewhere during that gutting process? You think they're going to shut all of that down, clean all of it up, and make sure that none of that contaminated meat went anywhere? And while I want to say, yeah, that's what we should do in the USDA facility, I can tell you right now, that's why we have all these E. coli recalls and all this hamburger recall and all this other stuff. It's been contaminated somehow, some way. You know how many recalls we've had in the direct-to-consumer market? Not a damn one. We don't have that problem. Each one of our steers is fully broken down and then packaged, and that entire cut floor is cleaned up, and the next steer is brought in. There's no cross-contamination whatsoever. And these guys aren't putting 40 or 5,000 through a day. They're putting 30 a month through, or sometimes less. So that is where the big problem is in America. We don't have enough rural, smaller slaughterhouses to even allow direct-to-consumer guys to scale to the point where we could start to provide people with everyday beef.
And that's the hardest part, right? The packager. Who's going to pack it? Who's going to cut
it? That's where
the
bottleneck is. I mean, that's the bottleneck right now. That's what'll prevent us. I mean, we'll only be able to take, there's times now where I'm booking time slots for our cattle 4 to 5 months in advance. I'm trying to grab every spot that I can. And I just hope that these cattle finish on that timeline. And there's been times where I've had to say, I only have 3 ready. I had 4 spots. I only have 3 ready. The good thing is the local processor is so booked up that they can literally call somebody else and say, hey, you want to bring an extra one? Or he can bring an extra one of his in and go ahead and do his, and then he'll sell it at the farmer's market there nearby. So it doesn't hurt them if I don't follow through with my number, but it hurts us because we don't have the product.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would rather a steer not be ready and not go than take a light steer and have a par product as compared to what we've been putting out. So like I tell people, sometimes we hit the lottery and they all come in right around that same time and it's perfect, and sometimes we lose. But that's really where the big bottleneck is. So when people think, well, everyone always says, well, we can't do this. We could, but we just don't have the processors to do it. So in my eyes,
we need more. We need way more small processors and get away from these big guys. All right, dude. So let's do this real quick. As somebody said, you made a comment earlier about how you're grass fed and then you give the grain at the end, right? What do they call that? They call that grain finished. So Six Design says the meat from farms tastes much different than what's in retail stores sell. How does that happen? Is that part of the whole grazing process, and then finishing on with grain? Is it being fed nothing but grain? What's the difference there?
Yeah, I mean, in a high density feedlot, you're getting fed nothing but a grain product. Now, the funny thing is, this whole grass fed, grass finished, and grain finished thing that goes on in the stores, you've got to be very careful because a lot of it's bullshit. So you can actually feed those cattle in a high density feedlot a bunch of hay and silage and consider them grass fed, grass finished. Now, every head of cattle in the United States is grass fed at one point in time or another. So anybody out there that wants to use the term grass fed, every single cow in the United States eats grass. They have to. As a calf, it eats grass and it gets its mother's milk. That's the only way it happens. There's no other way. So at some point in time, every cow or calf or steer or whatever you want to, get technical about, has eaten grass. Now, when you get to the finish, the grain finished cattle is where they go to a feedlot and they're just fed nothing but grain. They're going to be given some silage. There's nutritionists that literally, that is their job, is to figure out exactly how to pack the nutrition in there to get the most amount of weight gain in the shortest amount of time on the smallest amount of feed. So I couldn't even begin to tell you what a ration looks like because they change all the time. And there's people in there that literally focus on how do I get the absolute most out of this animal. Grass finished, if it's a true grass-fed, grass-finished. Now, there's only one operation that I know of 100% that I can verify. I've been on that operation. I can tell you for a fact that meat is grass-fed, grass-finished 100%, and that's White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia, Mr. Will Harris. Many people have seen him. He was on a Rogan podcast. His animals start on grass, and they never see grain a day in their lives. It's always grass. So I can verify that. But a lot of this stuff is just marketing hogwash and greenwashing. And that's what Mr. Will Harris faced a lot is, he did it the right way. And he was going into stores, Sprouts and other stores like that. And they were allowing other guys to get in on a technicality or, oh, well, it was grass, but they're in a feedlot. So I think the homegrown beef, the biggest difference in ours is the dry aging brings out a ton of tenderness and a ton of flavor. You're not going to ever find that commercially. I think the other big deal is we don't rush them. So they're on grass, they're eating natural forages like a cow would, and they're given grain. Now, in our situation, we do feed a non-GMO, and we also feed no soy whatsoever. There's no soy in any of our rations because the last thing this country needs is more soy boys. We need as much testosterone as we can pump into the men of America. And I highly promote and yes, I'm a proud fan of TRT for every dude in the country because the testosterone levels in this country are garbage, and that's why we are where we are. But that is the issue with soy products. All these guys want to drink soy milk and all this other crap. It tanks your testosterone. So we don't feed any soy to the animals just for that reason, but a lot of ours is done in silage. So we take that entire corn stalk and it is ground into silage so that it has the stalk, the cob, everything's in there. It's not like we're just feeding this high density grain. We also do a lot of what they call haylage products. So we'll cut oats before they go to seed, and we'll actually cut the entire thing like you're cutting grass, like you're cutting hay, and then we roll that up and allow it to ferment a little bit in a sealed bale, and we'll feed some of that. So I think that's how we're getting that flavor profile, but a majority of that profile comes from the fact that we have good marbling cattle. We allow them to dry age and hang and naturally get tender and naturally impart that flavor. So that's where they're going to see the difference.
Interesting, bro. So let's do this because I have a bunch of different questions. Let me ask this one question really quick. When the bull comes in, how long does it take him to get to every cow? How long does it take him to finish? If you don't mind me getting that question out there. Are you impressed with some of these bulls? Like, wow, dude, he got
how good he is. Now, a lot
is it
of
always
guys,
one cow? Is it always one bull?
Well, you try to minimize your numbers. So you don't want to overwork your bull, if you know what I mean. So guys will run groups of maybe 10 or 15 cows per bull. Maybe they go 20, 30 head per bull. And so, they may have a pasture where, okay, we're going to put this bull out now. We're going to give him 20 days. He's going to breed all the cows that he can. and then we'll run a cleanup bull behind him that'll catch anything he didn't get. So if he didn't get it and they're still coming into heat cycles, that second bull will go in and be able to clean up those ones. Now, obviously, the ones that are bred, they're not going to come back into heat, and they're going to want nothing to do with that bull getting on top of them. So that's one way. Another way is, obviously artificial insemination, which a lot of ranchers will use, because now you can breed all your cattle within a very short window, and all of them are going to calve at the same time. So you don't have to worry about having these calving seasons that last months and months and months. You can get all your calves dropped in, say, maybe a 30-day window, depending on what your breeding techniques are. So there's pros and cons to each, and
It's
90%
a con for the bull. I can tell you that much. Getting a handy versus
poor guy
a
can't get a
thing,
hand,
right?
in. But hey, there's a bull somewhere making all that semen, so he's getting his work done. But most people will, if they AI, they still run a natural cleanup bull to finish anything that did not catch through artificial insemination. So there's lots of different ways for that. So it's hard to just give you hey, this does this, but it just depends on the bull, how hard you want to run them. Obviously when you turn a bull out and he's just breeding all the time like that, they will lose a ton of weight. So you have to watch your animal and take care of them, because just like a guy, if you get a real heavy overweight guy, what happens to their fertility? It goes down. Well, if you drain all that muscle and get a bull into poor condition, his fertility is going to fail. Just like if you have a human in poor condition, same thing. So you always want your bulls in top physical condition, and you want the best that they can do, because you're going to get a better job from them, and you're going to get a better conception rate.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. So let's take a look at this. This is your website, right? Why don't you walk us through this a little bit? I'm going to kind of go through here now. If I wanted to buy from you, right? What are we looking at?
So Diamond B Meats up at the top there, the Diamond B Meats portion will take you to all of our beef products. And then there's a drop down there that'll say homegrown, and that is my wife's company, and that is all of our skincare products. So all of the fat that comes off of our cattle, the kidney suet goes into all of our skincare, and the trim fat goes into our soaps. But we make soap, whip tallow, and lip balm. Here you can see all the steaks. So Diamond B Meats, that's going to be all your steaks. You would just come on. Of course, you can see that we get wiped out hard when we drop new steers in. Most of our premium steaks will sell out in less than 24 to 48 hours from a group of cattle.
Nice. So you have everything from fajita strips to cube steak. So it looks like you're waiting on another cow to drop, huh?
Yeah, we'll have another group go in January, and that was kind of timed due to the move. The move's going to happen late January, early February. So we'll get one more group of cattle in, get everybody situated, and then we'll have a couple weeks to get a move done before we need to get another group in. So that's Diamond B Meats is there. Homegrown, and again, like I said, is going to be all the skincare. And then
so
also
under right,
homegrown,
that's Bath and Body. Now this is your wife.
Yep.
Now what is
Yep.
what
So
is
my
this?
wife
This is tallow soap, whipped tallow. Okay. So now what is tallow balm? Is this beef tallow?
Whipped tallow is your beef tallow made from the kidney suet, and that's whipped into a moisturizer. The tallow balm, we actually add bentonite clay and some zinc, and that has become the new favorite with mothers around the country now as a diaper rash cream, as a poison ivy cream, bug bite cream. It'll take the sting, the itch, all of that stuff, and it'll heal irritated skin. According to the FDA, I'm not allowed
the
to tell
whip
you
tallow you're talking about, or the tallow balm?
So that's the tallow balm. Will do that.
Tallow
That's
balm.
what
Okay.
we created that to be a diaper rash cream, an all natural diaper rash cream, because obviously we had two little girls, and we also have two little girls that love to get into stinging nettle and other ant bites and everything else. So we put that on all of their bites, scratches, things that itch, all that kind of stuff. Obviously the homemade candles, and then we have the soap and even shave soap for men. But all of these products are made by hand by my wife here at the ranch, and that's all from our animals' fat. So we don't go find other fats and other things like that. Everything that we sell comes off of our animals. And then Dane Good Treats is our pet product line. So we take the livers, the kidneys, the hearts, and we freeze dry those and make pet treats out of them so that you can give your
Oh,
dog.
these Dane Good Treats here. Okay.
Yep.
I see them to
A
the right
great little
here, right
dog
there.
treat. And by freeze drying something, you save almost 90, I think it's 96, 98% of all the nutrients because you're not doing any kind of cooking or heating, you're freeze drying them. So that's where a lot of our organs go. Crazy thing is, you could take our beef liver dog treats, because I've done it, and grind them up and put them in a gelatin capsule, and you have 100% pure beef liver capsules that you're paying 50, 60 bucks a jar for in the store. So those are, it's all human grade, but we just happen to use the organs for dog treats because that's the better place for it. And I don't have to worry about, am I going to have anybody buy a heart or a liver or a kidney or things like that? So
Now this is all like they talk about beef tallow being great to like fry food in, right? Isn't that what I'm hearing?
yeah, so we do some cooking tallow, and that'll be over on the meat side. We do have some cooking tallow available at times, but the skincare demand has become so strong and so prevalent
Oh
that
yeah.
most of our fat is being used for skincare now.
Wow. And the tallow soap. I love to because this is like I said, it's all natural. This is something my wife, I'm sure everyone with Christmas coming up,
Yep.
when you look at just what you have, if this looks like you should be like the stuff that's on this page, it looks like you will find it at Cracker Barrel, where my wife would just be walking around like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, and the soap is 100% one of them. Outstanding. What else? What else on this? Redmond Salt and Life. What is this?
So we do sell a
Seasonings?
lot of the Redmond products. So
Okay.
Redmond Salt out in Utah, great company, great American company. They mine salt right there out of the earth, and a lot of their products are 100% natural. It's just Redmond Salt. Great for hydration. All of our cattle are on Redmond products. All the cattle get Redmond salts, Redmond ag salts. They all get bentonite clay, which is a great detoxifier. Um, all of the products that Redmond offers, we actually use all of the ag products and we use all of the human products. Our kids that's all we use at the house is Redmond real salt. But all the seasonings that they have a lot of hydration products. Once we get up to Georgia and we get more space to warehouse some of this stuff and actually stock it, we'll probably carry the full Redmond line as well. But we got partnered up with Redmond because we use so much of their products for our ag side. Our horses, our chickens, all the cattle are on, like I said, all the Redmond stuff, and it's just incredible. If you ever get a chance, I highly suggest that you look into Redmond, look into their products, and they carry a wide variety from skincare masks for women to salt for your table to horse licks for you horse owners. So Redmond Real Salt is a great organization, Redmond Ag Products, but that's where that is there. And then we have a couple brand apparel things there. We do some
Right.
hats. We'll probably start getting into some shirts
What do
and
we
some other
have?
things, but
I like the Diamond B logo, bro. It's badass.
yeah, you get so busy with certain things, you tend to limit what you do. But now
Hey,
that we've had
if you
this,
have a hat that you just need to get rid of, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah, absolutely. We'll
if
get
you
one
have
sent
like when
out.
you're trying out any steaks, if you wanted to cut them in half and if you needed a taste tester, you could always ship them to New Jersey. I'm
It's
definitely when you
crazy.
get
We have a
restocked.
long list of applicants for the taste testing position.
You would
It's
think
literally
nobody
one
would
of the
want that
positions.
position, bro.
It's literally one of the positions that I haven't had to pay for yet, and I just have a crowd of applicants.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I will volunteer myself. And
Yeah,
you
I mean
have
the
these.
bullshit scoopers and the horse manure, scooping people. The applications are nowhere to be found. But for some reason, the steak testing applications are they're a dime
Hey,
a dozen. It's
if you
crazy.
needed me to shovel some shit for some steaks, I am a barterer for
There
sure.
we go. There we go. We might do
So
some more.
these are the gift boxes. I love it. One more question's coming in. So let's take this off here. One more question's coming in here. If I have you for one more minute, Josh. He says, "Is there something to look out for?" Six Designs says, "There's something to look out for." Quote, like in quotations, "look out for," that tells you retail meat has been naturally cured. Is it market specific in a way? And he also says, "I had no idea there were skincare products made from cattle. I would have never figured."
Yeah.
But
So,
is there something to look out for with the meat?
well, the dry age term is what you're going to look for if you're trying to find beef of a higher quality. Dry age is going to be one of those qualities. The problem is you are not going to find commercial beef dry aged. They won't take the time to do it. Could you imagine
Juice aged.
could you imagine if 5,000 head of cattle a day then had to hang for 14 days, the amount of space and storage they would need? It wouldn't work for their operation. So that's why we focus on smaller local processors and processors that will hang our cattle. Now, not all local processors will hang cattle that long. So I'll preface this with that. There are only certain ones that'll hang it for 14 days. Some hang it as much as 21 days, but that 14 to 21 day mark is where you get the difference in beef. Hanging it for 3 or 4 days, you're not really going to see that difference. You have got to get that follicula to grow and that dry aging process to start before you can get that flavor and that extreme tenderness that you're going to find. When we take those genetics of those cattle, we combine it with that 14-day dry age. That's how we're cutting ribeyes with a fork that you're cooking at home. There's no fancy method to cook it. There's no have to go to a, $350 a plate steakhouse. We have guys, Seth Feroce from Axe and Sledge, famous bodybuilder. He's eaten steak probably all over this country. He says by far we have one of the best steaks he has ever had in any top steakhouse in the country. And for shits and giggles, I went to Blue Ridge and we ate at a very nice steakhouse up there. I paid a stupid amount of money for a a porterhouse. I think we got that night. It was 45-day dry age. And I thought, man, if it's dry aged this long, like there's going to be this massive difference. I really want to see what this pinnacle of beef is compared to ours. Let's just see what we got. Ordered it, medium rare, of course, the way we all eat beef.
Of
Better
course.
be
Everything else you should be
red.
ashamed of yourself.
If you overcook it, you should not even eat beef. You just go eat tofu or chicken. That's where you belong. But I'm just kidding. But a lot of people, yes, I'm not.
Seriously.
But I had it and we sat down. My wife and I ate it. And we kind of looked at each other and I was like, man, this is, I paid $180 for this. Like, I feel like I've been cheated. So I called the waitress over and I said, hey, I got a question for you. Will you ask the chef for me? Was this dry aged from day one or was this commercial beef that was then put in a dry ager? She just kind of looked at me and she came back and she said, well, how did you know? I said, that's what I thought. They take commercial beef that was wet aged from the commercial slaughterhouse and they put it in a dry ager unit. That beef was already wet aged. You can't just change it. The key to this whole thing is the minute that cow is slaughtered, that it goes in and hangs as one whole piece and begins this dry aging process. Our ground beef is 14-day dry aged ground beef. There is not another guy. Well, there's a couple direct to consumers. There is nobody else crazy enough to do that because you're losing weight. We lose a lot of weight when that beef dries out. But I cut our steaks at 1.5 inches thick, and there's not many ribeyes that leave my ranch that don't weigh over 1.8 pounds. Some of them are over 2 pounds per ribeye. So you're getting a hell of a deal when you're buying a steak from us.
So hold on 1 second.
I refuse to cut things small.
So because I honestly I want, and you have ribs and stuff too.
Yeah, we do plate ribs. We do short ribs.
So you have bone in ribeyes and no bone out ribeyes, right? So
we do offer boneless ribeyes at certain times, but
okay.
When we run shorter on cattle, I cut everything bone in because the bone in crowd is more prevalent than the boneless crowd. Plus, most people say that they buy a bone-in ribeye, then they throw that bone in their beef stew, or they can make bone broth from it or something else, and it becomes almost two uses. But if you saw that video that you had played earlier when I was going through those New York strips showing that those cattle are tied back to us, you can see how thick our cuts of beef are. Now, some of these that we put on the website are obviously a stock image that we got when we first built the website. Once we get a more professional cameraman and a place to set all this stuff up fancy, we'll take some of our pictures of our own. But you can go through my Instagram page and see our labeled beef in the package, how thick it is, how marbled it is, and the deep red color that you're going to find.
That's outstanding. Now what are we talking here as far as like, you said this ribeye right there, you're talking that's over a pound, right? You're talking that?
Oh yeah. So our ribeyes, I believe the smallest one we have listed now starts at 1.5 pounds each. And there's a range. I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't have.
Okay. So just for everybody else, that's like 21 ounces, something like that, right? Okay.
Yeah. I don't sell them by the pound. So, because otherwise I'd have to list every single cut we had in an individual thing, and I would just sell that one cut. So we sell like in a range, it might be from 1.4 pounds to 1.7 pounds is this price. And you'll get
one within that range. Same thing with the filet mignon. Same thing with the New York strip.
Now, filet mignon is cut. The filet mignon is cut 2 to 3 inches, and we have a Maha filet that we have there. That's the Big Daddy. It is a 1 pound filet for $65, and I bet you'd be hard pressed to find a 1 pound filet in any restaurant.
Wow. And then the T-bone. So what do you like better, the T-bone or the porterhouse?
You're going to not believe this, but I mean, I probably would go porterhouse and T-bone are the same exact cut. Okay, so your porterhouse and T-bone, that is a New York strip on one side and a filet mignon on the other. The difference between a T-bone and a porterhouse is that filet mignon has to be 1.75 inches or bigger across. The minute it is bigger than, the minute it's bigger than 1.75 inches, it is labeled a porterhouse. If it's smaller than 1.75 inches, it's labeled a T-bone.
Exactly. So the porterhouse has a bigger fillet on it.
Yep. And you're getting 2 steaks. Remember, your porterhouse and T-bone is your New York strip and your filet mignon married together.
Wow. And if I have to pick one, I think the ribeye is my absolute favorite steak over all of them, even filet mignon. I think the ribeye is like right there with it. And then flank steaks. So you obviously have flank steaks. What's a Denver steak? That John Denver's full of shit, man.
Yeah, that John Denver's full of shit. It's used to call it the rancher's cut or the cowboy cut. It's a smaller steak. It very well mimics like a flat iron almost. It's going to be a little bit thinner. But it's a great one for if you want to do steak and eggs in the morning or something. You sear both sides, slice it up real good, and it goes great with your eggs. Our flat iron steaks are absolutely insane. In fact, my wife has argued with me about taking them off the website and just keeping them for us because you cook our flat irons up and they actually taste exactly like filet mignon. They are just as tender and just as flavorful as a filet mignon that we have. It's insane. And it's $23. I'm probably giving them away at that point. But
yeah, I mean, that's $23. And then when you look at the sirloin, for 20, I mean,
Oh, our sirloins. So I did a little project.
My wife would love them.
I did a little project and took a sirloin to the firehouse one time and didn't tell the boys and cooked it up, served it to all of them and said, all right, what are you eating? And they all thought they were eating filet mignon. And I said, you guys are out of your mind if I would bring you poor guys filet mignon at the firehouse. That was a sirloin steak. Our sirloins are that tender. We have not, and I know that people are going to be like, yeah, he just says that. That's his beef. Go look on my website. Go look on our Instagram. I have reviews from people all over the country. Our beef is stupid tender. I'm glad we're headed that way.
I want to be doing it. I want to prove it for you, So
I want you to challenge me.
I am going to put a challenge down right now, sir. When you get your next group of meat,
we get our next one.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to put an order in, and I don't want you to send it to me. I just want you to make sure that I could get it right. I want a porterhouse. I want a ribeye. I want some filet mignon. I'm gonna have something on all of you. I'm gonna go. I definitely want some flat iron, and give me like 4 different ones, and I want I'm a steak guy, bro. So
Yeah.
I want the ability to order it from you.
I'll
You know what
take
I'm
the
saying? Just
challenge
let me know when they
any
come
day of the
in.
week. I'm ready for it, baby. But
Now,
yeah,
so that
it's been a great experience. And, this wasn't an overnight thing. Don't get me wrong. Our first steaks, they were still incredible. The flavor was great. They weren't as tender. They weren't as marbled. We've had to work our asses off to figure this out. And I'm a first gen, so I've had to learn from all these other people in there. And luckily I have found people that are incredible at what they're doing and breeding and the genetics and understand all this. Recently, I got paired up with a gentleman who was a USDA meat inspector for 14 years, and he knows all the science behind it. He knows the tests that they use to tell the tenderness. What is it? The WBSF, which is the Warner Brotzler shear force test. He knows all the science behind it. He knew about the cowpains and the calpostatins. He's the one that turned me on to it. But
the
you
sheer
have to
force
be
test.
there's
Is
the
that
biggest
when you get up next to the cow and push them to see if you can tip them
yeah,
over while they're
that's right.
sleeping?
That's how you try to flip them over. But no,
And if they
they
flip
actually
over, they're ready. They're ready to go to the
Yep.
slaughterhouse.
They
Okay.
take a blade and they put it on a cooked piece of steak, and they measure the amount of pressure it takes to cut that steak. And our steaks are ranking on that
wow.
scale where it takes the least amount of pressure to cut those steaks. Is absolutely incredible. But you have to be willing to be humble enough to learn from all these people. And I am just a sponge when it comes to this, because at the end of the day, I want to give my customer the absolute best tasting piece of meat they have ever had. And we get so many people call, well, can we order a quarter? Can we order a half? Can we order a whole? I turn every single one of them down. And people are like, why? Why would you do that? It is so easy to sell a half a beef or a whole beef. Here's my thing with that. And I'll leave all your listeners with this because I think it's important that you figure this out. People think they're getting a deal when they buy a whole, quarter, half, or whole. The price drops a little bit because that rancher can get rid of all the cuts that he normally wouldn't. The roast, the ground beef, the shanks, all the things that are probably not going to sell, he can get rid of them. So he's willing to take a little less on it. People think they're getting a hell of a discount. What happens is if you don't eat that beef and it sits in your freezer and you start digging around looking for that pizza on that night where you need something real quick and easy, and you're digging through that chest freezer or the stand-up freezer, it happens on both, and you pick that steak up by the edge of that vac seal and you move it to a different shelf, then it gets moved again, maybe it drops out, all that jostling around will loosen that vac seal on that steak. And next thing you know, 6 months later, you pull out this ribeye and it's freezer burnt. My thing is, and I tell every customer this, whose name is on that steak? Mine. I took 2 years to raise that animal to be the finest animal you would ever eat, and it got ruined. Now, I understand you've already paid me, but my name's still on there, and I take enough pride in my brand and my name that I don't want that to happen. So I would much rather ship you out a box of beef every month, every 2 months, of exactly what you want and the amount that you're going to eat so that nothing gets wasted. Because it would be a real damn shame if that steak gets freezer burnt and it gets tossed. And I spent 2 years raising that animal, blood, sweat, and tears, and we sacrificed that animal to go to waste. I don't.
So when you get going, Josh, you're gonna have it set up to where, like, if I wanted to order, 6, 7, 8 steaks every 2 months or every month or something like that, you're eventually going to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to a point where we can do monthly steak boxes as well. Right now, we do a monthly subscription for ground beef, and it has taken off wildly. Where a lot of ranchers
a monthly subscription for ground beef.
Yep. So we do it in 10 and 20 pound packs, and people are even now asking me for 40-pound packs a month of our ground beef. That's how damn good it is, and that's kind of crazy to me because ground
is that
beef is
available
one of those, like,
now? Can I put an order in for that now?
Yep. Right now is our subscription boxes for ground beef. We have regular bulk boxes, so we mark the price down a little bit if you get 10 or 20 pounds in one shipment. Or we have a subscription where every month or every 2 months, you can have that automatically sent out, automatically deducts from your account, and we ship it every time that reoccurs. We just ship you a box. And here it comes.
And it's one cow, right? It's not 900.
It's just one steer.
All right, one cow.
Now, it's not the same steer all the time because obviously we get
obviously.
in.
Yeah.
But that was my point. That's
It's
what I
one cow at
wanted
a
to do.
time we're talking about here. It's
Yeah.
not 900 at a time.
I
Okay.
wanted to get people the freshest beef all the time. So instead of me sending you a quarter of one steer and it sits for 8 months, I would rather send you our freshest beef every time. You know,
And
and I know,
is that on the website as well?
yeah,
Oh,
the ground beef
subscription
boxes
login. Look at
are on
this.
there right now.
Oh, okay. So let me show everybody real quick at the stage. So that's the subscription login right there. Okay.
Yeah,
So
well, you can actually just go to the website there under Diamond B Meats.
okay.
Just right under Diamond B Meats, it'll drop down, and you can
Oh,
go to
gift
beef.
boxes?
No,
Oh,
just go to
beef?
beef, and it'll show you wherever the ground beef is. You'll see that you can go to ground beef there.
Oh, okay. So we didn't even touch this website here. Oh, so
there
now
you can.
what's the $25 ground beef? How much is that?
So every one of our packs of ground beef is packaged in a 2-pound flat pack. So that's 2 pounds for $25.
2 pounds for $25, 10
Yep.
pounds for $115.
Yep. And then 20 for
And 20
$225.
and that's available right now. And
That's
your
all
stew meat's
available right now.
available right now. Fajita strip is available right now. Okay, so listen, let me tell you something, everybody. Do me a favor. This is what I would love because I'm definitely gonna place an order, and I want some meat sent to my house. I want to try some. And everybody that's out there, try it and let us know, man, because I gotta tell you something. Order it up. I have a feeling it's gonna be absolutely delicious. You can see it. I mean, you can see it, and it's one cow. It is it is one cow, not 900. I love it. Listen, bro, I really appreciate you coming on. I love having you because you're not just about you're obviously about pushing your product, right? But your knowledge base on the differences and what you're getting with them versus yourself is immense. I don't think there's a lot of people that understand the amount of products. Like we obviously had some comments today talking about the amount of products that come from cows, from the beef tallow. So yeah, everybody check this out. Once again, the website is, and I'm going to look it up right now. It is homegrownand.com. Homegrownand.com. It is in the description, everybody. Josh Baker, obviously, his Instagram page is diamond_B_ranch. Right? Am I right here? Am I nailing everything so far? All right.
Yep, you're getting everything. And I mean, so people know it's just not about me. I want you to support your local your farmers and ranchers wherever you're at. But make sure you ask the questions and you're educated enough that you're going to get the high quality product that you're going to spend your money on. Our beef is not cheap. I'm not going to tell you it is. If I am ever the cheapest beef you find, I'm doing something very wrong. And I'll tell you that flat out. I'm not afraid to tell them that because I want to raise the highest quality product. If you're going to spend money, but I dare you to go to your store right now because my wife just went the other day. Ground beef, cheap commercial ground beef is $9.99 a pound.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying. I think my wife gets it from Costco right now. I think we get like the 3 pounds of meat for like $22 or whatever the hell it is, you know? So, no, listen, man. I live in New Jersey, so if I do have access, it's tough to find, obviously a local guy like you in my area. It's not. I think we have more than I know about, but I put it this way. I like your overall style, plus with the liberal comment and the soy boy comment. You had me at soy boy. I'm not going to bullshit you. You definitely had me at soy boy. But everybody definitely, I really appreciate the time that you spent on us. For whatever reason, this week is, I typically do hour-long shows, and these shows have been going over, but that hour and 20 minutes went really, really fast. Everybody out there, check him out. Josh Baker, Diamond B Ranch, and check out the skincare products because I know I'm anxious. If anybody tries them, let us know as well because that would be awesome. I think it's a great gift for Christmas coming up. Check it out. I think some soap's going to be put in there, but dude, when I get this meat, if you don't mind, I'll do some review videos.
Yeah,
how are they?
Baby. I have no hesitations whatsoever. I stand 100% behind our beef, and I'll put it against any other rancher out there.
Dude, I love it. I love your confidence, bro. Thank you very much. Listen, everybody out there, I hope you appreciate this. I hope you appreciate your lesson that you just got in beef. What are you getting when you go to that grocery store? How many different types of DNA are in the Costco package? I don't know, but I know with Josh, there's only one. Check him out, guys. Thank you very much. Obviously, be a caltrop in your own world. Be a caltrop, because when you're a caltrop, you're a defense mechanism for all of these things. You're a defense mechanism when you learn and you hear from people like Josh and you buy from local farmers. You become your own defense mechanism from the poison that we get shoved in our faces every day in a lot of different aspects of American culture. So thank you very much, guys. This caltrop is out. Later.